In December 1984, the world's worst industrial accident happened here. This factory released a chemical cloud that killed thousands of people in just a few terrifying hours. The accident happened because of a chemical reaction that took place in this tank. A reaction that led to one of the biggest man-made disasters in history. What happened here were seconds that shocked the entire world. The tragedy at Bhopal happened when some 35 tons of a lethal chemical called methyl isocyanate reacted with water and vaporized. Thousands of people in the shantytown that surrounds the plant were gassed, dying in the same horrific way that soldiers were killed in the First World War. The disaster was due to an amazing combination of circumstances. Had each happened on their own, the accident would never have occurred. Disputed. But the findings of the Indian government point to a disaster that started at approximately 8:15 that December evening, when a plant worker began some routine maintenance. He connected a water hose to part of the plant's maze of pipework. Keeping the system clean was vital, as contaminants could easily be formed during processing. Dirt was supposed to flush out of the system through drainage nozzles, a process that would sometimes take hours. Almost immediately, something began to go wrong. He had unwittingly started a sequence of events that would end with the deaths of thousands. 8:45. The pipes that were being washed started to become choked with the dirt being carried by the water. The nozzles became blocked and water began to back up, flowing into one of the main pipe systems that ran throughout the plant. With water flooding the pipes, time was running out. The tank should have been protected from contamination, but a catalogue of failures was about to have the most terrible consequences for the people of Bhopal. 3 hours to go until the catastrophic release. The first of many hundreds of litres of water found their way from a routine cleaning operation into the main pipe system that ran throughout the factory. It should have been impossible for the water to get very far, but mistake number one had already been made. A safety procedure existed to isolate sections of pipeline before they were cleaned. A simple piece of metal called a slip blind is inserted and the bolts done up tight, achieving an impenetrable seal. Incredibly, this procedure was often ignored at Bhopal.
To install a slip line like this would probably take about 2 hours, and you would have had to wear a lot of protective clothing, because when you undid the bolts of these flanges, the possibility of chemicals splashing onto you would be there. If one of these small pieces of steel had been inserted into the process pipeline, in all probability this disaster would not have happened.
By 9:30, the water was able to travel freely through the hundreds of meters of pipe that separated the main plant from the MIC storage area and its deadly content. The disaster could still have been averted, however, had the gauges in the factory's control room been trustworthy.
When this plant was designed and installed, the instrumentation here was probably state-of-the-art as far as India goes. Over the years, lack of maintenance contributed to the instruments giving faulty readings from time to time, which probably led to the operators and to the staff not taking the readings very seriously.
MIC is kept under pressure with inert gas to stop anything from getting into the tank. But for 6 weeks, the pressure gauge had read virtually zero. It was presumed that the gauge was faulty. In fact, there was a leaky valve connecting the tank to the plant's main pipe system. If gas could get out, then water could get in. by approximately 10 o'clock, the contamination had started.
The reaction of MIC and water generates carbon dioxide as one of its products. It also generates heat. Of course, the heat starts to warm the mixture. It's an exothermic reaction, as we call it.
Even with water in the tank, it should have been possible to control the situation. MIC has to be kept cool, and the tanks were housed in a concrete bunker, insulating them from the fierce heat of central India. There was also a cooling system controlled from a purpose-built refrigeration plant. The senior management, however, had decided to switch it off.
This wasn't running on the night of the tragedy. In fact, it had been off since May '84. The coolant inside had been removed and it was permanently disabled.
Switching the refrigeration off was an insane thing to do. These reactions, these exothermic runaway reactions, take place when we're generating more heat than we can remove. The refrigeration system was there to remove heat. Switching it off made this incident much, much more likely.
Incredibly, another safety device had been bypassed, in defiance of Union Carbide's own operating instructions. While there was a machine purpose-built to deal with toxic gases, a device known as a vent gas scrubber.
This is the vent gas scrubber we had at Bhopal. It works by neutralizing toxic gas before releasing it into the atmosphere. On the night, though, it was switched off for maintenance.
Even if this vital piece of equipment had been on, it was too small to cope with the quantity of MIC that was now out of control. VN Singh was working at the plant that night, and it was his duty to check the area where the pipe washing had started some 4 hours earlier. By this time, midnight, water was flowing once again from the drainage nozzles, but he noticed that something was wrong. The disaster was just minutes away.
When I got here, I saw water running out of the bleeders, but my eyes started to hurt. This was quite common at the factory, but that day it was very, very bad, so I ran to the control room.
What VN Singh saw when he got to the control room about a minute later was the final stage of a chemical process that had been underway for over 2 hours.
At a molecular level, things are happening extremely fast. As the system warms up, a second reaction kicks in, trimerization, a reaction between 3 methyl isocyanate molecules that forms a stable molecule and generates more heat.
As each bond is made, energy is released. Now the MIC molecules were able to react with themselves. All 42 tons of the material were free to generate heat almost simultaneously.
The reaction's getting very violent at the moment. Material starting to leave the top, lots of gas being generated, bubbles of liquid leaving. Right now, with the equipment they had at Bhopal, there was absolutely nothing that could be done to save the people.
So I came running out to tank E610, and even though it was underground, you could hear a terrible rumbling noise, and the concrete started to shake and crack.
The tank was now in serious danger of bursting, but it held. Instead, a pressure relief valve blew, and the gas was on its deadly way. It travelled to the main plant structure, through the useless vent gas scrubber, and then out. The gas was carried away by a southeasterly wind, clear of the plant, but directly over the sleeping city of Bhopal.
I started working for Carbide in 1971, it was one of the proudest moments of my life because I was selected to work for Union Carbide. But after that disaster, I'm ashamed now that I was ever associated with a company which did not manage to live up to its name and reputation in India.